Hi guys, welcome to Love Story. Before I play this quick clip, I just want to say that I think this topic is really important. They discuss a lot of things on this video, but this is just a small clip of a few things. And the main idea is that, can Christians have fun? And the answer is yes, but it's just not at the world's standards. And when you become a Christian and you become just different because God changes you. He just automatically changes you. It could be a slowly over time, or just a quick change. You desire different things and you can still have fun. It just looks different. But she says a lot of things in here that I think are really true. And the guy that she's talking to is, if you actually watch the whole video, which I'll link it below, you can tell he said he grew up in church. So I know a lot of people who grew up in church and they still did worldly things outside of church. And so they were taught how to be religious. Basically, you literally go to church, but outside of church, you can do whatever in your secret time, basically, like hide it behind your parents' back. And it taught people how to be sneaky. And so I think this guy, and just watching the full video, he's kind of struggling with some things, but Tiffany says some really amazing things, and I can attest to what she is saying. And when you're actually in Christ, you really do become a new creation, and you are just not the same. So I want to encourage people who say that they're Christians to actually dig deep as to, if there's issues that you have, things that you just can't get rid of, that you keep going back to, like lifestyles that you're struggling with. There's a reason why, and we need to dig deeper, and it's called deliverance. And we need to seek God fully so that we can be set free and not in bondage. So take a look at the video, and God bless.
Became more aware. I had more fun. I was more, I understood what was going on in the spiritual realm. Like, people right now the reason they are so promiscuous and having sex and having fun is most of the time because they were molested when they were younger. And that spirit that touched them made them promiscuous, or made them homosexual, or made them lesbian. Now, that's not everybody in every case. Some people weren't touched, but it's a very small percentage of people that weren't touched. So when we talk about fun, let's get to the root of where your fun came from. The root of where your fun came from is because somebody stole your innocence, and the spirit came and made you hyper aroused and hyper horny when it shouldn't have been there at the age of 5 years old.
That's different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow. So 8 years now, you've been saved. 2000. What brought you to God?
What brought me to God?
Like, what in 2015? What in that day you became God? Were you? Excuse me. The day you became saved. Basically, what I'm trying to figure out is the day that you become saved. When do you take it to getting it all the way right? You get what I'm trying to, because I don't know if you become saved, because I'm saved, but I'm learning that I don't know if I'm right.
That's right.
So it's like, when do you, or how do you know what's right? I know you're saying
look at everything from the perspective as a marriage.
Yeah.
Right?
Look, all right, that's a good
So
way
you
to
get
look at it.
married and you say, when am I supposed to get right? Surely you're going to learn about your marriage with your wife forever.
That's facts.
When at 80 years old, you're going to meet a new wife.
Yeah.
At 40 years old,
you're going to
meet a new wife.
Okay,
like
got it.
in
Okay,
your
yeah,
wife,
you
you're going to
understand?
find, you're going to continue to find her
Yeah.
as a new wife. You're going to find new things about her at 20 years old, at 30 years old, at 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, 70 years old. Every year there's a new finding of your wife, right? There's never a time that you get to a point where you're not learning about your wife, new communication skills. When the kids leave the house and you're empty nesters, you have spent 20 years of your life raising children with your wife. Now you have to learn your wife all over again with just you two and no other responsibilities, right? So when you say, when do you feel like you've accomplished, and when you don't feel like that? God is God. He's omnipotent. He's omnipresent. He's all knowing. You don't ever know God. He's ancient. You don't ever get to a place where you know God, because we're human and we're finite. But you work towards that like you do in a marriage. And the most simplest thing about God is intimacy. That's all he wants, is your love and your time. Like, that's all God wants. Obviously, as you get more mature in your walk with him, just like in marriage, you know, you think differently, you communicate differently, you know your wife differently, you know, you're not looking at other people if you struggled with that before, you know, just certain things that bothered you at the beginning of your marriage, like are nothing to you 5 years down the line or a year down the line. Yeah. And so that's literally the equivalent of your relationship with God. He has factored in all of your stupidity. He has factored in all of your mistakes. He's factored in all of your weaknesses. He's factored in all of your triggers. He's factored in all of your trauma. And he's just like, just walk with me. Yeah. So at the core of your relationship with God is, before God trained me on prophet, he trained me on how to be a daughter. Okay. Because most of us don't know how to be good daughters or good sons because you were raised in abuse. Not everybody, but a lot of people were. And so if you were raised on abuse, most people's relationship with God is their relationship with their father. So if their father rejected them, they're always serving a God who rejected.
Relationship with their God is a relationship with their father.
With their fathers, okay. Right? So if you served a God, if your dad abandoned you, you tend to serve a God who's always abandoning you when you need him the most. If you had a dad that abused you, then you're always kind of hiding from God when you did something wrong because he feels very abusive. If you had a dad that always rejected you and was never there, you always find that when you're in your time of need, God is never there. And so if you don't fix that deficit, God normally trains people up in the office of a daughter or office of a son. He's like, don't try to be anything. I just want you to spend time with me and receive love. You know how hard it is for people to receive love? Right. It's so hard. So he's like, let me just pour in love. Because if I can get you to believe that I am obsessed with you, if God can get you to believe that he is obsessed with you, he can get you to go against anybody he tell you to go against. Because my leverage is that I believe God is obsessed with me. My leverage is that I believe Zechariah 2, where he says, you touch Tiffany, you touch the apple of my eye. That's dangerous. Yeah. You touch me, you touch the apple of God's eye. That's why I don't care. He said, I'll be a wall of fire around about her. The word fire there means the wrath of God. Yeah. You touch me, you just touch the wrath of God. So then you say, you're not afraid of somebody blackballing me. You touch me, you touch the apple of God's eye. You're in trouble with God. You the one that dared to defy the armies of the living God, not me.
Do God talk to you?
Yeah, all the time.
So for you, because when they say, for me, when you say like literally, like you ask a question and it just comes to you, or
yeah, I get an answer pretty quickly.
I see.
Yeah, and he talks to me in a lot of different ways. But gosh, you caught me off guard with that question. I feel like something just happened, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But I'll give you an example. So I was asleep. I was getting ready to go to sleep one night. Yeah. And I'll say I heard a voice, which maybe sound familiar to everybody else. I heard a voice in that moment that said, set your alarm for like 3:30 a.m. Yeah. It was so random. And I was like, I talked back and I was like, that doesn't make sense. Why would I set my alarm for 3:38 a.m.? That doesn't make sense. Right. I don't even wake up that early. Right. And the voice got louder and louder and louder. Set your alarm for 3:38 a.m. And because I knew it was a spirit of God, I was like, let me just set it for 3:38 a.m. I feel like it's a waste of time, but because there was no other instruction. Right. I set my alarm for 3:38 a.m. It goes off. I wake up at 3:38 a.m. I obviously have to get off the pillow to get the alarm clock. I look around and I'm like, nothing happened. I get ready to lay back down. There is a huge black spider on my pillow. Wow. Exactly. Wow. At 3:38 a.m. Right. Had I have not waken up at that time, who knows what would have happened?
That's crazy. Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Another example is I was getting ready to go to New York City. I had a big meeting. It's one of those meetings you put on your vision board. It's one of those meetings you prayed for. It's one of those meetings that like everything in your life is getting ready to change. Yep. And I heard a voice say, don't go to this meeting the day of. Yep. So now I'm like, well, I rebuke you, Satan, in the name of Jesus, because this is like one of those meetings you prayed to God about. Yep. So surely I should be able to go to this meeting. But the voice got louder and louder and louder to the point where I was like, there's a difference between hearing the voice of God and assuming why he said it. And I think people struggle with both things. You hear God say, don't do this, don't meet with this person, don't do this, or do this, but you assume why not. Or you assume why. So I knew I couldn't do it, but I was like, maybe I'm gonna get robbed when I get to New York City. Maybe, I don't know, but I can't go. Right. So I canceled my plan that day, super disappointed, not even knowing if I made the right decision. The very next day, Hurricane Sandy hit New York City.
Jeez.
Wow.
Shut the city down.
Wow.
Nobody knew it was coming.
Crazy.
Crazy. I was in New Orleans.
Did you ever had a meeting?
No.
I mean, you ever?
Jeez. She was dropping some gems. I think that's a good question, though, of what he was saying in terms of like, can we have fun as.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you could see the difference between the Christians. There are some very subtle, seemingly subtle differences, but to me, the eyes that I am looking through, the lens that I'm looking through, might be different than most people's. So Tiffany lives a pure lifestyle. You can tell she is fully devoted. Not saying she's perfect, not saying she doesn't stumble, because I have my personal opinions about certain things that I've heard her say and stuff like that. But nonetheless, the guy that she's talking to, you can tell, maybe he doesn't hear from God in certain ways. And that's okay. We all hear from God differently. But it seems that he's in this place of Christianity where I personally have been before. And, I understand it. I never could really hear the voice of God. I didn't know it. And as a matter of fact, as I've shared before, I used to say, God, I keep doing this thing. And if I'm a Christian, you got to help me. I'm not supposed to be doing this, and that. And these were things that I struggled with. It was a cycle of sin. Maybe I didn't do those things every day, but I would do it maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month. And this is what we call the cycle of sin. You're not broken free yet. And I remember when I unexpectedly got freed from anger. Now, this doesn't mean that I don't get angry. There's righteous anger, and then there's human anger, but it wasn't this overwhelmingly anger that would just come. And, I have self-control, and I'm fully aware of my anger. And so it's nothing that, it's nothing that it used to be before I got delivered. So when I got delivered, I only knew I was delivered because this weight was off of my chest. I didn't even know there was a weight on my chest until I got freed from it. So it's very interesting. We can think we're okay, but we really need to seek God fully and go to church services where they allow the Spirit of the Lord to move, where there is deliverance. And I have seen only my Christian life has only progressed because of deliverance. If I had not been in atmospheres of deliverance, I would still be a stagnant Christian who was in bondage, who still had the same sinful cycles, but now I do not. Do I fall back and stumble every now and again on some things? Sure. Do I fall back and stumble on everything? No. And as I get closer to Christ, the more faithful I am to him. But there has to be a point in time when you are dramatic with getting right with God and saying enough is enough. Because I went to God and I'm like, God, you've got to fix this. You've got to help me. I begged God. I prayed. I pleaded with him. In my suffering was like, God, please help me. I don't want to live like this. I love you and I love my sin, but I don't want to do it because it's wrong. Please help me. And that's when he eventually set me free, because I was open to listening to where he wanted me to go and meetings he wanted me to go to. So you have to put your pride aside and stop being a lukewarm Christian or a religious Christian, because that guy right there, you can tell he was just being religious, whereas that woman, she has a real relationship with Christ.